Hey there, thank you for tuning in again to our Smack channel. We really hope you enjoy this video. If so, please leave some love or share your thoughts below in the comment section. Thank you so much, and now let's get started. Enjoy the show.
Hey, this is me, John Langford, and this is my story on Smack.
Hey, welcome to another Smack episode. My name is Philip Ibrahim, and today I'm with John Langford, the COO of the Anschutz Entertainment Group. We talked about the sustainability initiatives of AEG, his favorite musicians, and what role the German Reinheitsgebot plays in his life. Enjoy the show. John, good morning. I'm so happy to have you finally here. It took us
it took
a while.
A bit of organizing, didn't it?
And then we are not only meeting in person, we're meeting in Berlin, which is amazing because you're just here for the time, and then I think you fly on later.
Back home this afternoon, unfortunately. But thanks for accommodating me.
I'm super happy to have you here. Hey, home is my first point. Where is home? Can you still identify home?
No, I don't have a home. So, I mean, I've moved around enough. I moved to Glasgow at one stage in my life, and I met who's become a really good friend from the Netherlands, and he said to me, once you leave your country of birth, you're a citizen of the world, and you never really have a country called home anymore, because I really don't. I feel like I'm a chameleon.
But home, or the country of birth, is South Africa?
Correct, yes.
And where is the city that you were born?
I was born in Johannesburg.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're quite familiar with big cities, I would say.
I am. But I live in the countryside outside of London at the moment because I love big cities. I love being able to get into big cities, but I love feeling the grass underneath my feet. And
yeah, I mean, London is it's a different ballgame. I agree. But commuting to London sometimes can be a bit painful, right?
It is. It can take me. I went to Fred again on Saturday night, and it took me 2 hours after the show to get home. That was a clean road. So
you took a car. And where was the show?
At Alexandra Palace, which is in North London. I live in the south of South London. So
is the Ali Pali?
Yep, that's it. That's the
we
one.
know the Ali Pali because that's where darts happens.
Correct. Correct.
Is that one of your locations as well?
No, it's not.
So you're allowed to see other locations.
I am, because it's one of our artists. Yeah, so we're the UK promoter of Fred again. So it was our show, but in somebody else's venue.
We can tap on that a bit later. That's quite interesting. Hey, John, because we just met, which is great, but probably you can help us a bit out. What made you become somebody living outside of London, go into the Ali Pali for a show? And can you paint the way a bit?
Well, it is an interesting story. I mean, I grew up, as you said, in South Africa. I grew up in apartheid South Africa.
Wow. In
the 80s. And we must remember that it's not like today where you've got all kinds of media options available to you. Everything was controlled by the state when I grew up. I only had a singular view of the world. But I was very fortunate to have met an Australian at my school who was an exchange student, and his stories of just being out of his home country kind of lit a fire in me, and I applied to become an exchange student. And I got this application form that said, where would you like to go? I said, Germany, number 1. I said, America, number 2. And I said, Canada, number 3. I didn't get my first choice. I got a letter, because you didn't get emails or anything back then. I got a letter saying you're going to America. I thought, this is fabulous. I thought I'm going to go to Los Angeles, New York, Chicago. I got a letter a couple of weeks after that saying you're going to Kodiak, Alaska. And Kodiak is an island in Alaska. And I arrived there aged 17, having flown halfway around the world. And I lived in Alaska for a year. And when I lived in Alaska, one of the families I lived with for 6 months was a Democrat politician. And I realized that I'd grown up in an oppressive state.
Wow.
In a world completely isolated and insulated from the rest of the world. And my views on the world were just opened up, like cracking an egg open. So I went back home after my year in exchange. I went to a university which was famous where Nelson Mandela had gone to university. The week I got home, Nelson Mandela was released from prison.
Now we're nearly having the age. That was one of the questions.
And it was an amazing time in my life. I spent 4 years in a country that the country had been cracked open. I get goosebumps talking about
Crazy.
it, but it was really, really an incredible time. I was an political activist, and I was arrested for protesting. I got called up to do military service, and the military police arrived at my parents' house looking for me. And I just finished university at that stage, and there was nowhere else that I could go to except to the army. I mean, that I'd been called up to go to the army. And so I thought, well, the only other place I know to go back to is Alaska. So I went back to Alaska and lived there for another 2 years. And
That you would have not said before when you read the letter first, right?
No. I mean, this is all stuff I would never have believed would have happened. And I went back to South Africa then, when the apartheid government had been overthrown and there was a new democratic government. And there was a moment, this is to answer your question, there was a moment where I needed the car. I had to take my dad to work so I could borrow the car. And the radio station I was listening to was this really famous top 40 radio station. It's like the equivalent of Radio 1 in the UK. And they said, if you'd like to work for this radio station, phone this number. And I thought, fuck, I'd love to work in radio, because I've always loved music. My mom's a piano teacher and my grandmother's a piano teacher. So I phoned the number. I got an interview. I was really arrogant. I mean, I walked in and I said, I'm the guy for the job. I got the job, and that's really how my career started, is I got a job in top 40 radio.
Wow. I mean, I have to I go one step back. I mean, you're grown up in an apartheid country, or in South Africa during apartheid, and then you're somehow having the vision that the world is different. I mean, probably for a lot of people listening to this is something unbelievable, because you had nothing. There was no computer. There is nothing you can do. The only thing is probably you have a newspaper or a tape or something once a week, or some news that you cannot trust, or you had to trust because there was no other options. And then you see that there is an open world that is totally different from what you come. I mean, that has to make something out of a young person, because going back in a country that changes so drastically. I mean, that's not only 180, that's 360-degree change in a country. And then spending time there again, that must have been a lot to digest as well around you.
It was. I don't think I realized it so much at the time, because I had the exuberance of youth, you know.
Of course.
But I think what it did teach me is that everybody has the opportunity to change their position, their views, their opinions on things. But I think what's important is to have access to information and the freedom to debate. And I think what worries me about modern society is that we polarize people so much, whether it's the AI and the algorithm that's doing that, or we just don't listen to each other enough. I think we talk more and we don't listen enough.
I mean, I would love this to be the end, but it's just the start of our conversation, because that's so amazing, and it really relates to what we see, and what as well is the downside of this whole media stream, is because it's so easy to put one in one corner or one in the other corner, and then next day this changes completely. So that's the downside of what we have in terms. But I agree, what you said is listening more, probably trying to understand the opposite side a bit more could help. But that leads us back to being in a radio. I remember radios at that time really lived as well from the call-in shows and from the this possibility of being live somewhere attached. That must be amazing.
Yeah.
Or not.
Well, it was. I think we were a music radio station.
Yeah.
And I think what I loved about it is I was young. I mean, I was in my 20s. I was working for this really hot, sexy radio station that everybody wanted to work at. It was the most fun time of my life. You know, we just did fun.
Yeah, that's nice.
It was a serious business, but we didn't realize it.
I have to give a shout out to, because we're sitting in our studio here, and the person that created the studio together with me is a South African, Dominic Neal, who's as well a musician there. And I think just this relates so much to how he describes music from back home. Hey, but then you did the radio, and then there must be a moment where you said, okay, it's enough of radio. Usually you should have gone to TV next. What happened then?
I always liked live music.
Yeah.
There is something about seeing somebody perform live that is really special. And I think as media and entertainment has gone through a digitized phase over the last 10, 15 years, whether it's Spotify or Netflix or Apple Music, live music is still live music. And there's an essence about live music that is just really special. And for me, I've got a very clear moment in time. Michael Jackson was playing in Cape Town, and I couldn't afford the tickets. I was working at the radio station, but we weren't the sponsor of the event. And no one gave me any free tickets. And I sat with a 6-pack of beer outside Cape Town Stadium, and I could hear Michael Jackson inside the stadium, which was a special time. But I noticed all these vehicles going in and out the back of the stadium, and I thought, that must be a pretty cool job. And over time, I got to know the promoter of that, who's a really famous promoter for a company called Live Nation, Atti van Wyk, who's been a mentor and friend of mine for many years. We got to know each other, and after a few years, he offered me a job at this company called Big Concerts, and I became a concert promoter.
So you made your dream come true.
It did. It did indeed come true. And before I moved to Europe, because the UK was still in Europe at that stage, I was living my best life. I was living on the beach. I was surfing every couple of days. I was promoting live music and festivals, and in Cape Town. I mean, how much worse can life be than that?
Did you see Michael Jackson afterwards live?
No.
Have you had a chance?
Nope.
Nope. That would have been
never had the opportunity. And the irony of all ironies is the O2 that I ended up running in years later was supposed to have that big run of Michael Jackson shows just before he died. But, yeah.
I remember Michael Jackson's funny for me because I remember in the 90s he had a concert in music in the Olympic Stadium in Munich, and at the same day was one of the first 3-on-3 tournaments there, and we used to travel there and play basketball, and we were wondering because there were all these courts, these different courts, and between the courts were always people camping. And I was like, what the hell? Why would they come to camp at a 3-on-3 basketball tournament to see random players that nobody knows? And then I figured out that they're already camping for the day after when Michael Jackson was supposed to play, which was, that was quite an intense moment as well for me. So I understand that love for music. Even though, how do you feel that? Would you prefer standing in the audience, or is the view from the back or from somewhere else better?
I prefer to stand at the stage on the other side of the barrier, looking back towards the audience. I do it so often. I just love seeing the faces of the people, particularly in the first few rows, because those are the people that have camped out to see the show. They've taken their hard-earned money. They've camped out. They're there to see the artist, and regardless of the artist, whatever it is, when I see their faces, it reminds me of why I do what I do. I also don't like being in the middle of crowds. I've got to say that. I don't have a fear of it, but my job has a lot of responsibility about health and safety and risk, and I just don't like being in crowds.
It's so funny because I didn't know, I was not sure if we can touch it, but for me, I love music. I love live music, but I hate being in uncontrollable crowds. This is always for me a nightmare, being a big man and then always bumping into people. But this year that changed a bit because I got as a present a ticket for the Burna Boy show in London, and I was in the Golden Circle at a Burna Boy show, and I have to say I do relate so much to what you say. I don't know how many times I was looking on stage, but the same amount of time I was looking around me to see these people in absolute happiness for every song they play, singing every lyric. That is so amazing. I can really relate on that. Okay, but back to the point before we speak about Burna Boy. Then you worked for the big concert company, and then what made you move on? Or you stayed in South Africa then?
I was in South Africa for 8-9 years working for Live Nation, and I had an incident at a show that I was responsible for. It was a Linkin Park event, a stadium event. We had a sponsor structure that blew over and somebody died. And it changed something in me. It made me realize my responsibilities. I had to go to court. Our company was criminally charged. We were found not guilty, and actually the sponsor is still dealing with it.
Wow.
But I just realized that I wanted something a little bit different. And around the same time, I got approached to run a venue, a new arena that was opening in Glasgow, Scotland. So I said yes to it, and we moved. So my wife and 2 kids, we picked up sticks, they say, and we moved from Cape Town to Scotland, which is about as different as you can imagine.
You went to Alaska already from there, so
Yeah,
you like it. You like the opposites.
I don't know. We always tell people that we had a view of the UK that everybody spoke the same English and that the weather was the same throughout the UK. And neither of those is true, especially when you get to Scotland, to Glasgow of all places. So, yeah, I ended up running an incredible venue that is, it's the second busiest venue in the world, actually, in Glasgow, which was an amazing time.
Cool. That's super cool. And then the Glasgow time was over, and then you said, what's next?
Yeah, I was one of the companies I worked with when I was in Glasgow was AEG. They did some consulting work to the arena that I worked at, and they were looking for somebody to run the O2 arena, which is the busiest arena in the world.
So from number 2 to number 1?
And yeah, it was a pretty easy step, and I've been at AEG ever since. So I've been at AEG now for the last 8 years. First at the O2 and now in just a broader
It's
role.
super funny because for people in Germany, probably we need to say who AEG is, because Germans, they know that there is a famous a brand that does washing machines and stuff, AEG.
Yes.
And whenever you see the AEG,
I get their complaints often. My washing machine's not working. Wrong
and
AEG.
I have to say, I was first I came to know what Anschutz Entertainment Group is when they opened the Mercedes-Benz Arena. When they came to Berlin, because then was it AEG. Now they're doing as well live events. But that's quite a diverse company, and that's how I came to know them. And then I realized that they are huger than you would think, because it's not a brand that you see always up front on somebody, but they're quite big as well in the States. I mean, they're running Staples Centers and everything. Huh?
Yeah, we're the biggest sports and entertainment company in the world. We're the second biggest live entertainment company, but we're a private company, and private not just in terms of ownership. We have a single shareholder, Philip Anschutz, but we're also private in terms of being in your face. You know, the way Phil does business is very private, but good business.
Nice.
So, the foundations of the company started when, Phil is an American billionaire. He's done great business in all kinds of industries, but he loves sport, and he bought an ice hockey team called the LA Kings. And once he bought the LA Kings, they needed a place to play. So he bought this piece of land in downtown Los Angeles, which eventually became what's now the Crypto.com Arena, but was previously the Staples Center. And he built the Staples Center for a sports team. And that then started the whole focus of live entertainment, because once you've got an arena, then it's not just the ice hockey team.
Yeah.
You know, we had 3 basketball teams in there. We've and lots of live music. And that created a whole new business, which has become AEG globally.
Super interesting. I was this year at the Crypto.com Arena, not in, but at it, because I was checking the basketball statues and everything. And as a big Kobe Bryant fan, I was wandering around, and I realized I have to go back next year, because then it's the statue of Kobe Bryant being released in June. I'm not sure whether I'll make it. Hey, super great. Hey, one of the probably questions that I would have asked later on, but when I hear what is the biggest learning that you had from jumping from operations to probably a bit more strategic role, I really, probably it's a personal interest, I really think the way that you describe why you love what you do, seeing the happiness in the people, and then moving into a strategic role, how do you cover that desire? What do you do then?
I think it's easy to get into a strategic and leadership role and to not forget your roots, but to neglect your roots, because you get caught up in spreadsheets and lawyers and accountants.
I'm super scared of that.
Me too, don't worry. I ask my team for graphs, actually, because I'm better with graphs than with spreadsheets. It's just how I am. But I make an effort to get onto the factory floor. Partly because I like music, and I've now got teenage children who really like music and drag me along to stuff that I ordinarily wouldn't go to. But it's important for my team to see me at an event. It's important for them to know that I care about them as much as I care about the audience or the artist. I care about the team. It's not an easy job running a live entertainment venue or working in our industry. It's tough. I mean, you work till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, get a little bit of sleep, you're back in again the next morning. You've got to deal with issues on a show. People die. There's a lot of responsibility, and I don't want them to know that they're forgotten about, which is why I'm in Berlin a lot, meeting with Dirk and Ola, my 2 trusted generals that run our buildings here, because I know what they're going through. I've been there.
Especially after COVID. I mean, the whole perspective has changed as well. The staff shortage is quite intense as well in these countries. I know.
Yeah, everything's changed. Yeah. Audience expectations are super high.
Yeah.
Staff want more work-life balance. It's we've got a lot more shows because things were cancelled or postponed. It's a lot tougher post-COVID. Profitable, but tougher, definitely.
Yeah, shout out to Dirk Dreyer, who is actually who brought us together. He's as well a bit the reason why I'm sitting here not with a suit anymore. So he's quite really.
He told me that story. he said you had all your suits made in Thailand,
which is true. But it's much more funny that he. When we started with Smack, I was asked the question, how is a night out with Dirk Dreyer? That was one of the questions I was asked, and I said I cannot answer that, but I have to say you have to experience it.
What happens on a night out with Dirk stays on a night out with
Dirk Dreyer is, and this is a statement, is the world champion in how we call the polnische Abgang, the Polish exit, because Dirk Dreyer is that expert in making a quick appearance and then.
Do you know what he says to me? He says it's like being a hotel GM, which he was, and
I know.
you know this. He's like, you make a lot of noise when you come in the front door, but you go out the kitchen.
This guy, true. He masters it. So, and I have to say, I'm happy because we're so good friends. He always comes to me and said, Phil, I'm gonna leave soon, and I'm never saying bye, but I want you to say bye. That makes me happy. Hey, it's super great. When you look in your career, and you have had quite a lot of acts already, is there a favorite act? Is there one that really strikes out? What do you say? This is the one I would always go and see again, if possible.
I was expecting this question, and it's always really difficult to answer. It's never who I think it's going to be. It's when I stumble on a show, and I just kind of go, "What was that?" And I mean, immediately there are 3 that stand out for me. I saw Prince at that venue in Glasgow, which was a show he announced a week before, and just because it was a new venue, he wanted to play it. I mean, that was absolutely spectacular. Again, I saw Queens of the Stone Age at the same venue. I had no intention of going. A friend of mine said, I really want to go to the show. I sat there watching the entire show thinking, I really should have seen more of these in my life. And then I saw Drake at the O2, which was just a visual, oral spectacular of just, you were surrounded by sound and lights and moving parts and incredible performance. So, and then a 4th one, I was walking past a jazz club in New York one day, and I was on my own. I went down for the 9 o'clock performance, and it was Les Paul, who was famous for designing the famous Gibson Les Paul guitar, just him on stage with a guitar. So it's a whole range of things that I never expect it, and it just kind of hits you in the face.
So let's turn it around. What is on your Spotify playlist when you're listening to something alone in private without the audience?
I go through phases. So I've come out of like a deep country phase. I'm going through this like kind of obscure North African phase. I'm listening to a lot of Tina Rawan at the moment, which is a North African rock band. Guitar band. I dragged Dirk along, actually. They were playing at the Festhalle in Kreuzberg the other day, and I dragged Dirk along, and he was like, what is this? Because we had to go to a Kiss show afterwards. So in one night, we did this amazing North African, Moroccan like vibe, and then suddenly we were watching Kiss like half an hour later. So
you like the extremes. I already can tell that.
Yeah, and I actually do like a lot of ambient chill, just kind of when I'm working as well.
Hey,
blues.
You mentioned your kids.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. What do they force you? Who do they need to see every week?
Well, they dragged me along to Fred Again. I
Okay.
mean, I think Fred Again's fabulous, but I wouldn't have gone to the Fred Again show. So, that's one that has definitely stood out for me. I think what surprised me most about my kids is not the stuff that I would expect them to like.
Mm-hmm.
You know, our daughter, who's 18, said to us the other day, "You must really listen to this band called Fleetwood Mac." Okay, look, granted, this was about 4 years ago, but I remember thinking to myself, that's what's so cool about music these days, is it's discovered in a way that's so much more organic than when we were younger, where stuff was just given to us. The radio station told you needed to listen to this.
Yeah.
So whether it's Fleetwood Mac or Ashaki or Drake, it's just music to them, and I love that.
And I think the creativity has changed as well. A lot of times you hear a snippet or a part in a song and you think, hey, I've heard that before. And then you dig deep and you see like this was already used for, I don't know, 6 number 1 hits in different speeds and tone and noises. So that's really nice.
And you referenced Burna Boy earlier. I think, you know, what we're finding today is that people are open to music that would never have made it into our ears
Back
10,
then.
15 years ago.
Agree.
And, you know, to see African music and Nigerian music or, you know, South African Amapiano stuff being integrated into mainstream, what is mainstream music, is amazing.
Yeah. We did a concert with Loiso here.
Oh, okay.
He was here 4 weeks ago.
Yep.
He did his first European show with 700 people in our courtyard. And I was so amazed by him because so influential. So I really can see as well that the influence of artists from areas that you would never experience or expect to be there is quite amazing. So that's quite a thing. So now you said that you're living close to London in the green,
the green belt,
the green belt of London. But how much are you traveling really? Is that
so I'm in the office probably 3 days a week,
which is in London.
Which is in London. You know, that's an hour and a half journey for me, which is a pain.
We call it traveling as well.
I'm in Germany a lot. So I'm either in Berlin, where we've got our 2 venues here, the Mercedes-Benz Arena and the Verti Music Hall, or I'm in Hamburg, where we run the Barclays Arena.
Okay.
I'm in Los Angeles 3 times a year. Normally, either, you know, we're a global business, so I'm learning from colleagues or sharing with colleagues. And then, sometimes it's Paris, sometimes it's Poland.
What do you do in Paris?
So we have a share of the operating company, which is the Accor Arena.
Okay.
And we've got a couple of other smaller businesses in Paris. We run a festival in Paris, Rock en Seine, which I was there 3 weeks ago for the Strokes. So, I'm fortunate that I get to see a range of things, but I'm tired of travel.
It's I understand that. And sometimes you get up early, you're somewhere in a train already with papers and stuff. No, I get that. But if you look into all these arenas, is there a place or a venue or let's say a country where you say, hey, we really should be there? That's one of the future goals that we should have.
Yeah, I think we should be more in Europe. You know, our competitor Live Nation is all over Europe. They've done an incredible job. They're an incredible business. The CTS Eventum Group obviously is all over as well. And I think there is opportunity for us to be more in Europe. Our approach is a little bit different though. You know, we're a boutique business in some respects. Although we represent big global artists like Taylor Swift. So we do the big things, but you know, if we're going to do business, it's got to make commercial sense, but it's also got to be the AEG way of doing things, which is, I think, a little bit more white glove in our approach. So I think you'll see more of us popping up in places for sure.
Can't wait. Show me a tip, because you already mentioned that you have your team preparing your graphs and stats, but what is a typical day in the office when there is no event? I mean, does that exist? Is there a day? Wednesday the 13th that you remember there was no event that you
hardly
okay.
Hardly but I'm on a lot of calls, so I do like to talk to the team a lot. So whether it's Dirk or Ola here, even if I'm not here in person, I'm talking to them 2-3 times a week. I've got regular scheduled calls with them. I also, you know, I've got lots of other relationships that I need to build and maintain, whether it's with Live Nation, who's our biggest client as well.
That's a very unique situation. That
Yeah.
the biggest competitor
Is
is
our
as
biggest
well
client.
a biggest client.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, I'm doing a lot of lunches and breakfast. I don't like to do dinners too much because I find them draining. I'd rather get home to my family. So I'll do breakfasts and lunches, and then it's spreadsheets, budget, strategy, all the magical stuff that I didn't think I'd ever have to deal with in the live music industry.
I hope you're good at that, because Dirk is he likes that. Hey, probably an interesting take on sustainability, because you mentioned as well the importance of the future, and as well, if I look at an event per se, it's a bit like our hotel business. We're not really the most sustainable parts of the entertainment of people. But how do you take that? How do you embed sustainability in the AEG approach?
I'm a huge supporter of sustainability. During COVID, I went back to university and did a postgraduate course at Cambridge University to learn more about the impact that we're having as humans on the planet.
Nice.
It was a really scary course because I walked out of there thinking, we fucked this place up. I can't look my children in the eye anymore. And if I look at my own life at home, everything's renewable. I've got electric vehicles. I'm waving the flag because I feel that we all need to do this and not enough of us are. So in our business, we're radically transforming the way that we approach sustainability. I don't always use the word sustainability, because I think there's a climate challenge that we need to respond to. And we've done some incredible things over the last 2 or 3 years post-COVID. We've appointed a sustainability director for Europe who reports to me and supports the teams around Europe. We've got a great thing here in Berlin and Hamburg. We've got cup washing facilities that we've put in, so all the cups on site are reused. We just announced last week with the 1975 at the O2 that we're doing 4 events which are going to be carbon removed. So all the carbon that is emitted by the event, so not just what we call our scope 1 and 2 stuff, which is our own burning of carbon, but also the suppliers, the catering, audience travel, we're going to remove from the atmosphere. So there's a charge of about 90 pence, which has gone into the ticket price, and we will then physically remove the carbon with a specialist company called Curios that we're working with, and that's a range of carbon removal techniques that we will be doing to actually, so we minimize the carbon and then we remove what's left, the residual carbon. And I think it's going to set an example of way that the live entertainment business can make a real difference. And I think, my appeal to anybody listening is, no matter what you do, you can make a difference, and you need to make a difference, and everybody needs to show leadership on this, because there won't be 2 or 3 generations left after us if we don't do something.
Full stop. Super interesting. Is that something that we can see as well on your website, or is that a topic as well to learn of? Can other companies tap on your take on that?
And I'm open source about this stuff as well. What we're going to do with this 1975 gig is, once the events are over, once we've calculated the carbon, once we've shared the learnings, it'll be a case study for other businesses to just use. I think, we also play a leadership role in influencing other businesses as well. So we're busy developing what's called a green rider at the O2. So that will be, what a rider is in a tour. I want,
but for the audience, it's good.
No. I want blue M&Ms.
Exactly. And I want them only in a green jar.
Correct. But as a venue, we're now saying to an incoming tour, if you're going to play our venue, these are the sustainability initiatives that you need to support, like no single-use plastics, water bottles, refillable water bottles. Let's use, hydrogen generators rather than diesel generators, etc. So
crazy. I think that's one of the most interesting parts, because I really think what you said is that we want and have to make a difference there, and it has to start from the top. It's easier then to follow these kind of guidelines through, and I really think that this is way important. Hey, going on the final round of some of the questions. We started earlier already by the spare free time that you have after the dinner with your family. Now, I know what's filled now, but what are your hobbies? I have to say that you already said to me that you like rugby, which is great. I've never met a single South African person that doesn't like rugby or golf. Yeah. I don't know why. It's either that or that. So that's something that you really like. So it's important for TV time now as well.
I don't play golf. I'll watch golf. I play tennis in my spare time, and I love traveling. But other than that, I don't have a lot of spare time at the moment, unfortunately, because my teenagers require a lot of driving around, which is annoying, even though
they don't have a driving license yet?
Well, the 18-year-old is old enough, and she's learning at the moment, but she's not motivated enough. So I'm trying to motivate her a little bit more.
Yeah, I can tell you, when you listen to that, the best thing is get the driver's license. You're so independent, especially in the UK. I mean, you can go to London by tube and train, but once you want to go the other direction, you need a car.
Yeah, exactly. Or when you want to go out on a Friday night, don't expect your dad to come and pick you up at 1 o'clock in the morning.
That's a lie. Every dad will still pick you up, but they will complain heavily and loud, and the Saturday morning will be painful. Correct. But they do, I know. my son is 8. I'm not picking up at 1, but he's already very clear when he wants to be picked up. Okay. Going back to rugby, who's going to win the World Championship?
The Springboks are going to play France in the finals, and the Springboks will win. And yeah, I am biased, but I genuinely think they've got the best team at the moment.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm not seeing a lot, but if you see the confidence what they're playing and as well the tactics, and this fan base is quite unique. To end up for this time, I have looked up your name because it was quite intense to prepare for this interview. Everybody knows that I'm not preparing well, and everybody who's in the room now can see that I prove that.
I can see that. Yeah, you've got
plenty of notes.
Plenty of notes.
Plenty of things that I added afterwards. But what I did was I Googled your name, and that is quite something funny. I'm not sure whether you have done that already, but if you Google John Langford, there is a couple of interesting people that you should really come to know.
Yeah, there's another John Langford who's a famous musician, John Langford and the Sadies, and he's a
black country musician.
Yeah, yep.
Then there is a famous photographer who does amazing headshots, I think in the UK. Yep. And then there is a computer scientist who was quite, I think, nearly won a Nobel Prize. And there's a famous engineer. I don't know what's with this name, but it was hard to get details from you. But I got a lot of life stories from the others.
Fabulous.
I was about to ask questions for the
social
others.
Media.
Wrapping up, John. For me, when I look into what I've wrote, there is actually one last question that I have. You said in the beginning that your countries that you wanted to go for were Germany, the States, and Canada.
Yep.
Why Germany?
Because my dad worked in a brewery, actually, and his job was really interesting. He's an engineer, but he designed bottles and filling machines, and he always used to come to conferences here in Germany. And he always spoke so fondly of coming to Germany, and so I just wanted to come to Germany. And he would always throw some kind of German words at me, like Kartoffeln.
Potatoes. Yeah, very good German.
I've got a great story. I use that specifically because I also speak Afrikaans, Dutch, and a ticket is a kaartjie, a kaart. And the first time I was going through Germany, I thought I would try asking for a railway ticket, and I asked for potatoes instead of a railway ticket. So
I love this story. So your father was working in a beer brewery, so you had to go to the country with the Reinheitsgebot. That
Correct.
is a German word that you always need.
Absolutely, and I can't remember the year of it, but
1800 something. I have to say. Can we? That we have to script that. So if you're interested in when the German Reinheitsgebot was invented, follow all our channels because we're going to do an extra session about the German Reinheitsgebot. Hey, John, thank you very much. It was super interesting to go with you on your life journey
Thanks,
with the
Phil.
ups
It's
and
really
downs.
good to be here.
Thank
Sorry
you
we
very
couldn't
much.
spend more time together, actually. This could have gone on for hours.
Yeah, let's see. Probably be good. We're going to do a second session about the Reinheitsgebot, so we're going to get you back
Perfect.
for that.
We'll do a beer tasting.
Thank you very much, John.
Awesome.
That's it for this episode, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to share your thoughts on this episode and everything else that is going on at Smack with us by checking out our website at smack.media or connect with us on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Instagram. We'll see you next time.
It's me again. We hope you enjoyed the video, and there's more from where that came from. Check out our other content over here. And if you always want to stay up to date on all things Smack related, subscribe to our social media channels, which you'll find below. Thanks, and see you soon.